Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So we're going to actually create a little bit of a mini series here where we're going to try and break down some of these borders that are generally created when outsourcing. And we're going to cover a specific challenge every single week. These are some of the more common challenges that I'm hearing firms bring up. And if you find them helpful, and if you find these mini-series become very helpful to you, make sure you let me know so that we can continue and we can continue to expand on different challenges. And if you need more help around certain areas, I would love to make it more public, because generally if one firm is having that difficulty, there's normally another firm having the same difficulty and maybe even not knowing what questions to ask when it comes to it. So I want to make sure that this series is really focused on these challenges, and it'll just be myself on these mini series. And we're going to start with one which is quite a common one around how do I get my firm involved in the outsourcing? How do I make sure that there is little resistance to it? And how do I make sure that even my partners are bought into the process so that the overall vision is going to work for us and we're not going to have challenges when it comes to the investment of everybody, and we're not going to have people feeling like it's going to affect their positions and jobs. It's a very common negative thought to have for people, right? When we look at outsourcing and offshoring in a lot of cases, and we haven't experienced it specifically in the firm, what we'll find is it goes to the news that we've heard about, right? So we look at, if you hear about the public companies that are out there and in the news, and we talk about outsourcing, and right now especially we're talking about manufacturing and all these tariffs coming up, and we're looking at making sure that we're bringing more jobs internally into the US. The relation to outsourcing and replacement of jobs, it creates a fear in people's mind in a lot of cases. It is also not something that is openly talked about. In a lot of scenarios, people don't find it a super comfortable topic. It's somewhat of a taboo subject, right? And because of that, we need to make sure as firm leaders, and if we're the ones who are championing the opportunity to work and build global teams, we need to make sure that it is done in a transparent fashion so that we can address concerns that people have inside the organization, because what we really don't want to do is have our team members, have our staff, have our partners feel like this is something that is a negative, because otherwise now, even though you're trying to combat somewhat of the staffing problem inside your firm in a lot of cases, or you're looking at it as a way to scale your organization, if that affects some of the good talent that you have internally, it becomes, again, a new challenge that's going to come up, and really it's going to cancel each other out from the real benefits. So the best case scenarios that I've seen firms working on when it comes to building this outsource and offshore team is really building a sense of transparency across what is actually going on, making sure we start at the leadership side and having a very clear direction and vision to our outsourcing goals, which means it could be the managing partner creating some type of direction that we want to go into and setting goals, but really making sure that everybody on the firm side, when it comes to the partners, understands what this is going to look like and why the firm is doing it. Okay, so there are different reasons for that. Every firm has their own reason why they want to expand offshore, right? It's the same reason why you may choose to go to India or the Philippines, or you may decide, you know what, we want to go to South America or South Africa, right? And you have your own reasons for doing so, right? And also it can be an option where, hey, we don't want to go offshore at all, but we want to make sure that we are leveraging contractors within the US and outsourcing in that fashion. Okay. So no matter which way, because it's a different style of working, it's not like they're employees, they're not working in your office. We want to make sure everybody feels comfortable with what they're doing. Okay. Now, so the first step, let's create goals and a vision as to why you're doing it and what it's going to look like. Build out that roadmap internally as to, in an ideal scenario, what is this going to look like? Then we come down to education. Education is one of those areas where it's a lot of the concern and negative impact that the words outsourcing and offshoring drills down to is because of a lack of education as to what this can look like, will look like. And there's also so much talk about when something's going really well, we tend to not necessarily talk about it, right? It's just something that happens and it's going smoothly, so we don't need to focus on it. But because there are nuances to outsourcing and offshoring, and it is newer in some fashion to the accounting world, there are challenges, right? There are challenges. And when there are challenges or things don't go the way we want, we tend to speak up more about that. Oh, it didn't work for me, right? We tried it this way and it really had a negative impact for whatever reason. So now all that negativity is also then going to be the first thing that people see when it comes to us actually trying to educate on it. So, but when we start to learn in a phased manner as to what it can look like in those good scenarios, right? The reason why we're doing it, right? What are ways that we can overcome some of the common obstacles around doing it? When you build that internally in the firm, it becomes so much easier for everybody to comprehend what it looks like. And you will get a lot more of a positive impact, right, when you're even getting started. Also, a lot more acceptance to it, and a lot more patience around it, right? If you set expectations correctly and around that these are new team members to us that are working with us, we have to invest in the training. We can't expect them to come into our firm and really have a finished product there, because the way that they've been doing it is different than the way that our firm does it. Okay, so making sure everybody understands that it's not going to be a finished product. It's a person we're dealing with in a lot of cases. We have to set those expectations correctly. When it comes to this transparency, right, and there's an internal element, right, when we come to partners, team members, managers, staff, that we need to focus on. But there's also an element of client focus that comes into this transparency, right? And we talk about internal resistance, but we also have internal resistance to necessarily let our clients know about it, right? And this is, again, it's a whole topic around how do we release this information? How do we disclose to our clients, right? Do we disclose in some cases, right? And in what manner do we disclose, right? And I feel like after talking to so many firms about it, there's more firms than not would prefer to disclose in the majority of situations, right? It makes people feel more comfortable. If you don't disclose, it feels like you're doing something wrong, right? And in a lot of cases, right, as long as it's not the taxes specifically, when there are very specific regulations around disclosing, but when we're talking about that accounting and bookkeeping and audit disclosure, it makes people feel a lot more comfortable, right? When they know that they've got the client has seen that, okay, yes, we've disclosed to them in some fashion, that they know that we're outsourcing or know that we're using global teams, right? It becomes a lot easier to sort of navigate through. In addition to that, generally the clients care even less that you're doing that. Right? I mean, you will have conversations around potentially pricing, right? Or how do we bill for this work that's now being done offshore in certain cases? Now, there are different ways, again, to go about this that you can decide internally in your firm, but it's good to have those conversations so that everybody feels comfortable with it. In my opinion, the work product is going to be the same work product, right? If you bill on an hourly basis, you may have more hours going into certain projects than necessarily if you just did it internally, right? But the same way as if you put a partner on it, they would probably do it faster than if you put a staff member doing it. But the difference in rate as well, there's a big difference in the rate that you're going to charge for that, right? But now when you tack up the number of hours, now does that equate to the same amount or not? That's up to you as a firm to decide. I've seen firms that have gone about it in a way that they have not made any changes to their pricing, right? And to their charge out rates, right? They've just, okay, this is a staff member. Every single outsourced team member is going to be at this staff level membership, right? Or if they're a staff level or a senior level, they're going to compare exactly the same billing rate as to my internal staff and senior. You may have a slight difference in there, okay? But this is all conversations that you should have within your partner group, especially, so that everybody feels comfortable. I would say keep it simple in a lot of cases, right? But it's my level of comfort is different than a lot of your levels of comfort, right, around doing so. I've seen it happen in a lot of firms. If this is the first time you're doing it and thinking about these things, have those conversations, and you can always change down the line, right, as to the way that you're doing it. Okay. So, but it's good to have those conversations. Make sure everybody's aware of those conversations are going on. The more it's talked about in the meetings, it's going to make life so much easier for those partners or team members that take a little bit longer to get comfortable with these types of changes. It is a change management project internally that needs to go on, right, when it comes to outsourcing and offshoring. One of the other pieces is showcasing your wins. Okay, so when we are doing this, we need to be very vocal about the successes, and even if they're small successes that are going on, right? We are dealing with people, right? If somebody's doing a great job offshore for you now, let's share internally with our teams as to, okay, what's really working? Why is it working for that individual, but why is another individual not working? So that we can decide. Sometimes it's just a mismatch of a team member, right? And maybe it's a different career path. Maybe it's a different learning curve that individual has, right? Are we implementing the same type of training, right, as our domestic team as we are international teams? Okay. So, but by making sure that all these topics are being talked about internally and shared, it now becomes more real for a lot of the team members. It becomes a long-term thought process rather than necessarily just a short-term, hey, let's see if it works. This is just a project. It shows that we as a firm are going in the same direction, and we're open to talking about it. It's not about it going perfectly all the time. We need to have these conversations, okay? Do some sessions with all your team, right? Talk about some of the challenges that are going to come up. Talk about some of the concerns that are typically faced when it comes to outsourcing, okay? And you may have key people that are involved in the decision-making, right? When it comes to more of the outsourced team or the team building in different fashions, right? By encompassing those people and empowering them to make certain decisions as to the way to do it, it means that it doesn't always fall back then on the managing partner, right? Or the partner in charge, right? Because that's another issue that I've seen in a lot of cases, right? The person that wants to do it takes full control of it, right? Now, the concern with that is now if you really concentrate into a small either partner or a small service group or a specific service line, each service line is different. I've seen firms where each partner there's a small office that is focused on it rather than the whole firm is focusing on it. If we just you can have a test subject or a test area to get a good idea. But if you're not thinking about it across the firm and as one, you're going to find it very difficult to be able to scale the outsourcing operation or your back office specifically as to the way that you want it. You're not going to look at it holistically, right? You're going to start to have very individualized silos being built again within your organization, where as soon as we get to a certain size of a firm, we need to be thinking about it more as like a corporate structure anyway, and really not necessarily getting rid of the partnership, but the traditional partnership model. We need elements to centralize the firm. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult after a certain level to continue to grow in that fashion, right? And if we look upstream at the larger firms, or if we look at even the entry into firms with private equity, we see what's the first thing that a lot of them do. They're starting to plug in COOs, right? Chief growth officers, these individuals who are centralizing a lot of these activities, right? They're putting in processes and looking at a service line rather than necessarily from office to office, right? There has to be a method that's being used, okay? So the biggest takeaway, though, when it comes to building buy-in within your firm, we need to involve everyone, right? I see firms now, and I'm sure you do, if you look online, there are firms that are, if they release any type of, hey, listen, look at our new intern group, they also show their new intern group coming in from the Philippines. They're coming in from India, right? It's all as one as part of the firm. There are trips going on, right, to their international offices. And what is happening? They are showcasing more of their international office trips than necessarily their domestic gatherings and mini trips that are going on, because it is a big deal, right? It's a big deal going across the world to meet part of your team compared to necessarily going down to the city that you're in already and meeting up with a couple of the team members from different offices in that area, right? It's a bigger deal. So we've started to publicize that more and more. So I would recommend take a transparent route to it, right? Have a think about it. Put a proper plan in place. Involve people like your HR, your marketing teams to make sure that we're showcasing a lot of the good things that are going on. And especially if you are going about it in a way that you are building your back office, building a real team that's an extension of your office, make sure we are really thinking about it from a long-term perspective, right? We want to include them, right? Think about it. If you've been through a merger or an acquisition, it takes a lot of time and effort and really thought through effort to make a merger successful, right? In terms of integrating those teams, right? Now we have teams internationally. It takes effort to integrate, right? And it also takes time, right? You can't force it day one. You have to be mindful. You have to make sure that we're using the time to build collaboration across the teams. And one way of doing it may work for one group. Another way of doing it may work better for another group. And that's up to you as a firm to decide, right, which way fits the service line, right? But it needs to fit the majority, not just a minority, right, inside the firm, okay? And make sure that you and the firm understands that why you're doing it, okay? Why you're doing it, the benefits of doing it. And in a lot of cases, there are huge benefits to doing it. You're able to increase salaries, increase profits in the firm, right? So from the partner side of it, they should be bought into it from that perspective when they're able to see that, right? But also for the staff level and senior levels, you can spend more time with those employees, bringing them into higher level engagements, right? Focusing on that training path and the career path for them. So consider all these elements, right? When you are really focusing on, if you are having some internal resistance, if you are want to focus on some building the buy-in internally within your firm, these are some different areas that you can focus on. So thanks for joining today on Business Beyond Borders. I hope you enjoyed this session, and then we'll be focusing on another one of the top challenges on the next episode of Business Beyond Borders. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.